I'm Jillian.
Jillian.
When Ms. Gallen just brought up how we know a lot of our own individual cases, one of the cases I was focusing on was the regents of the University of California versus Rocky with affirmative action. And I was just wondering, because affirmative action is such a controversial topic, because some people say that you're judging people solely on their races. Like, I was just wondering, I'm assuming that you
I'm a supporter.
Yeah. But I was just wondering, like, what are your views on the controversy?
This is, and it's great that you learned and you studied Bakke, because there will be a case this term. It's the Fisher case out of Texas, which is going to be, I think it's going to be devastating, right? So Texas has a plan that after they said that you couldn't take race or gender, it's important to underscore that the affirmative action also helps women. That you couldn't take that as the sole criteria for whether or not to include people in a university or a context. That Texas came up with this plan to take the top, I think, 10% of their public schools and give them admission to the University of Texas, which was another way to have diversity, right? Because the schools were so segregated, and there were so many more segregated schools. If you took the top 10% of all the schools, you had a lot more brown and black kids going into the UT system. And so this second case that's come through now with the Fisher case is trying to say you can't even take that as a factor, because they're saying that having diversity is one of the reasons why you have this plan, that we have to be race neutral. Now, look, did I feel when I first went to Princeton that I wasn't really ready for it? You bet. I didn't go to the schools. You're lucky, you're one of the best schools in the country, right? I didn't go to a type of school like this one. And I didn't read everything my other counterparts read. And I had never understood some of the stuff that other people showed up at Princeton to do. Was my SAT score as high as the other SAT scores of my roommates? No. I studied for the SATs with my little Barron's guide from a public library. I didn't go to a great prep school. I didn't have an SAT preparation class. It was a couple 100 points below. I think it was, I was in the 1300s, and my roommate had a perfect SAT score. So I was dumber than him on the SATs, right? And I felt, well, God, did they only let me in here because I'm Puerto Rican or I'm affirmative action? And then I go to college and I realize that when I take my tests, I take my tests. And they don't give me a grade based on, at Princeton, like most of the schools, they give you a number. So I was whatever number I was, and the teacher didn't know who submitted the tests. And after my first semester at Princeton, I worked my butt off, but I got straight A's. And I said, I'm just as smart as these people. And I never got straight A's after that, right? Because I kind of mellowed out and had a little bit more fun, and A's and B's, did pretty well, but never worked that hard, because I wanted to prove it to myself. And it was mostly me I wanted to prove it to. And, sure, there is a thing that goes through everyone's mind, like, am I here because they're looking for racial diversity? Am I here because they need women in these leadership jobs? What you guys are up against, it ain't all a bed of roses, I want to tell you. In the private sector, oh my God, if you look at the number, do the research on the number of women on corporate boards. Do the number of research of number of women CEOs. When I'm out there raising money from the wealthy, it's mostly the guys. Or the wife of a husband where he's made the money, right? And that's perfectly their peers. They're a partnership. It's not just because you're a housewife doesn't mean that you're not, equally important as the person who's out there in the job force. But women in the workforce is really, we haven't arrived there yet. And so there will be affirmative action programs, hopefully, that will pick you and put you on a track. And you will say, well, the reason why maybe I'm here is because they don't have women partners on law firms, or they don't have women investment bankers, or they don't have women hedge fund managers, or they don't have women account executives. And the most important thing is just whatever gets you the equal opportunity to compete, the rest you have to earn on your own. You have to prove your abilities. I'd much rather have a shot at proving my abilities than people say, well, we're not going to let you in because it's better this way. I'm like, no way. Give me the chance. Give me the shot. And I think affirmative action is one of the kind of great leveling fields for when we're not all the same, starting point. And I worry that, the Bakke case was the beginning of an effort to Bakke was, now it looks like a civil rights success, but at the time was also decried as not all perfect, because it kind of began to say that, it was a factor in higher education, wasn't the explicit only factor. And then it's been watered down, since Bakke. And what you find in a lot of places where we have succeeded in breaking through and establishing rights, there's been an effort to roll them back, chip away at it, bit by bit. Let's talk abortion for a second, right? I know it's controversial. I know I'm in high school, but I'm kind of a free thought type of guy.
It's okay.
It's okay. I hope you don't have to go through an abortion, but if you do, you should be able to have one. You should be able to have a legal one. Go ahead.
In history, I think we've been working on Supreme Court cases, and my case was actually IA versus Planned Parenthood in Northern New England.
Yeah, that's our case. We argued it.
Oh.
Jen Dalvin was a lawyer in that case.
What did you say?
Jen Dalvin was the lawyer in the Supreme Court.
So,
I saw that case in the court. Go ahead.
wow. So what you're saying is that women should be able to have an abortion, and the 48 hours notice, and how the Constitution wasn't protecting the woman who was having an abortion, and I found it actually very shocking that I forgot which the Supreme Court was going to review New Hampshire's abortion law, and it was clearly evident that the case was unconstitutional because it didn't protect the woman.
Yeah.
However, the outcome was actually it actually seems to be, I looked up information how it's going now, and you do have to notify the parent 48 hours before the abortion takes place. However, the Constitution now does protect the woman, and if the woman needs immediate abortion for health effects, she's able to do so.
Bypass, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So look, just like I was saying with affirmative action or abortion, and it will be true in gay marriage when we win gay marriage. Our opponents will try to find a way to chip away at a right that you establish. Right? So affirmative action was established, and over time they've chipped away. Now Fisher could possibly knock the whole case. We argued it.
Oh.
Jen Dalvin was a lawyer in that case.
What did you say?
Jen Dalvin was the lawyer in the Supreme Court.
So,
I saw that case in the court. Go ahead.
wow. So what you're saying is that women should be able to have an abortion, and the 48 hours notice, and how the Constitution wasn't protecting the woman who was having an abortion, and I found it actually very shocking that I forgot which the Supreme Court was going to review New Hampshire's abortion law, and it was clearly evident that the case was unconstitutional because it didn't protect the woman.
Yeah.
However, the outcome was actually it actually seems to be, I looked up information how it's going now, and you do have to notify the parent 48 hours before the abortion takes place. However, the Constitution now does protect the woman, and if the woman needs immediate abortion for health effects, she's able to do so.
Bypass, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So look, just like I was saying with affirmative action or abortion, and it will be true in gay marriage when we win gay marriage. Our opponents will try to find a way to chip away at a right that you establish. Right? So affirmative action was established, and over time they've chipped away. Now Fisher could possibly knock the whole thing out. After Roe versus Wade, 1973, there's been an effort to limit the right of women to decide when and if to have a child. And what we believe is that that's a decision best left to a woman, with a woman herself, with her family, with her doctor, with her loved ones, with their own conscience. And there are women in my family who haven't had abortions even when they had an unintended pregnancy, and I totally respect them for carrying the child to term. And I also respect women who've terminated pregnancy, because that's you know, you can't make the decision up for anyone else. You should just make it for yourself. And that's ultimately where I come down. And what you've seen with the abortion, the Ayat case is an interesting one, right? The Ayat case was the most recent Supreme Court case, as a way to limit, you know, since women were given the right to terminate pregnancy until the point of viability. Viability is determined by the woman's doctor, right? So it's not determined by some legislator or some court. You know, the woman with her doctor, when is the fetus viable? And then over time, they then had to find a different way to try to take away that right. So they have the parental consent laws, right? That you gotta tell your parent if you're an underage person. Makes sense in some context, but what if you're the victim of incest, right? What if your unintended pregnancy is because your uncle, let's just put it that way, is the one doing it to you? You're really gonna tell your father that your uncle's, you know, raping you? It's really hard to do. And, you know, so these are the exceptions, and these are just, you know, these are not hypotheticals, these are real simple cases. So, you know, the parental consent piece, the waiting period, they put the waiting period in place as a way to make it difficult to get the procedure, right? If you make someone wait around for 24 hours or 48 hours, it's no big deal if you live in New York City and you have to go to a clinic across town, but it's difficult if you're in Helena, Montana, and you have to drive 9 hours to Billings to go get the procedure, because then you have to wait there for 2 days, and sometimes there's only one clinic in some of these places. You know, there's one clinic. Or to try to overturn Roe versus Wade, the Supreme Court doesn't like to do that very often. It has this policy that you've learned, I'm sure, stare decisis. You know, we rarely overturn a policy, so they try to kind of limit the rights that are established. You're going to find the same thing in the LGBT context, right? When we finally get the right to marry nationally, we see it happening already. There's this clash that's being set up between, you know, okay, you have a right to marry, but I have my own personal religious freedom right to not want to officiate at your wedding if I'm a county clerk, or rent you my country inn if you want to have your reception at my hotel, or, you know, so they're using religious freedom, one value, one civil right, against another value, equal rights.
Same thing with pharmacists refusing to
prescribe
the morning after
pill, the RU486. And so, look, if we allow ourselves to go down that path, you have a right to have your own personal belief, but you don't have a right to enforce it in the public sphere or through government policy. So my grandmother probably would never have let me stay in her bedroom, her spare bedroom, with my boyfriend, right? She just would not have it. It's totally okay. My grandma's not alive. I mean, maybe sad, but she has that individual personal right. Now, my grandmother turned her beautiful house, which is making it up, she didn't have a beautiful house, but she had a little apartment. But she had turned her beautiful house into a bed and breakfast, where she had to put an exit sign over the door, where she had to make sure that there's a fire sprinkler system, where she'd have to pay a room tax to the government for running a bed and breakfast. That if you had the Department of Sanitation come in to make sure that there weren't rodents or anything in the public facility. The minute she turns her private bedroom into a public accommodation, guess what, Grandma? If I make a reservation for me and my boyfriend in your bed and breakfast, in that same bedroom that you didn't want to let me live in for free as your grandson, but now I'm just a customer from the public, you don't have that private right, right? Because I cannot allow your private belief to trump my equal right, and you